Title: The Impossible Problem. In one of Columbia University's lecture halls, Ethan, an ambitious math student, was sitting in the back row, struggling to stay awake. The previous night had been exhausting. He had spent hours working on a different math assignment. He tried to focus, but fatigue overcame him, and his eyes closed against his will. Suddenly, he woke up to the sound of chairs moving and students packing their things. The lecture was over. Looking around in confusion, he saw the professor standing near the board where two equations were written in clear handwriting. Assuming they were homework, Ethan quickly copied them into his notebook before the professor erased the board and left. Back at his dorm, Ethan sat at his desk staring at the problems. He started working on the first one, but the more he tried, the more impossible it seemed. He searched his textbooks but found nothing useful. Determined, he went to the university library, flipping through reference books, reading, experimenting, writing, and erasing. Hours passed with no progress. Frustration crept in, but he refused to give up. He believed that every math problem had a solution. It just required persistence and deep thinking. Then, in a completely unexpected moment, as he was rearranging his equations for what felt like the 100th time, an idea struck him. He tried a new approach, reworked the calculations, and he found the solution. He couldn't believe it at first. He checked and rechecked his work, but the answer was correct. A wave of excitement washed over him. He had solved what seemed impossible. He eagerly awaited the next lecture to show his professor. When he entered the lecture hall, he expected the professor to ask about the homework, but he didn't. Confused, Ethan raised his hand and asked, "Professor, why didn't you ask about the two problems you wrote on the board at the end of the last lecture?" The professor looked at him, puzzled, then smiled and said, "Homework. Those weren't homework, Ethan. I was just giving examples of math problems that have never been solved." Ethan froze, his eyes widening in shock. "But I solved one of them." The room fell silent. The professor approached him, intrigued. He reviewed Ethan's work, checking every step. His expression changed from curiosity to astonishment. Word spread across the university Ethan's solution was documented and officially recognized. He became famous not just for solving the problem, but because he did it without knowing it was impossible. He succeeded because he never heard anyone say, "No one has ever solved this." This story isn't just about math. It's about believing in yourself. How many people abandon their dreams just because they're told something is impossible? Maybe, if they hadn't heard that, they would have succeeded. Just like Ethan never let anyone tell you that you can't.